Hello my dear friends, you're in the Military with Summary channel. In this video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous 12 hours. We have a lot of very interesting updates, so let's start. And first we're going to talk about Ukraine because yesterday in the evening the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Russian Federation, Valery Gerasimov, reported about the situation on the ground. And his report was very interesting because currently we see the differences between his report and the situation that you can see probably through any map that you can find in the open source. So let's discuss everything in details, and first let's talk about his report related to the Orekhov or the eastern Zaporozhye direction. According to the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Russian Federation, Valery Gerasimov, the clashes are currently taking place in the city limits of the city of Orekhov. So according to him, the Russians, as a result of offensive operation, managed to break through Ukraine's defense in the area of the settlement of Orekhov to enter the city itself. And currently the Russians are trying to establish complete control probably over the southern or the southeastern parts of the settlement. As of the morning of the 17th of March of 2026, we don't know for sure where exactly the Russians entered the city, but the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Russian Federation reported that the Russians are already inside of the city itself. Very interesting statement, and most likely in coming days or maybe in coming hours, the Russians, at least, or the units of the group of forces Dnipro, would be forced to provide this additional updates and maybe even video proofs of the statements that were made by the Commander-in-Chief. As for the eastern Zaporozhye direction itself, there are no differences between the statements that were made by the Commander-in-Chief and the current situation that you can see in front of your screens. The Russians are attacking and storming the settlements of Verkhnya Tersa and Vozdvizhivka using the units of the Group of Forces East. There are very heavy clashes, and he provided reports that the Russians answered the southeastern part of the village of Verkhnya Tersa, and now you can see something similar, or at least on our map. As for the northern Zaporozhye direction, according to the Commander-in-Chief, the Ukrainians continue their counter-offensive operation, and the Russians stated that the Ukrainians have huge losses, up to 2,500 soldiers. Furthermore, when talking about this direction, during the previous night, we received changes. So, for example, this video was published by pro-Russian sources, and here we can see how Russians using FPV drones were attacking positions of the armed forces of Ukraine in the central part of the settlement of Novonikolaevka. So based on this video, we came to the conclusion that most likely during the previous attacks, the Ukrainians managed to break through Russian defense, answer the central part of the settlement, and if this information is correct, if the Ukrainians are still there, obviously we understand that their main purpose and their main task of the armed forces of Ukraine is to encircle and to cut in cauldron or to cut in pincers positions of the armed forces of the Russian Federation in the area between the villages of Verbova, Kalinovska, Berezova, and Stepova. So which means that this area is well fortified with lots of Russian troops, and the Ukrainians are trying to encircle them. So let's wait and see what is going to happen next. Now let's talk about the Dnipro direction. The Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Russian Federation stated that currently there are two main important tasks for Russians. The first one is the settlement of Novopavlovka. He stated that currently there are very heavy clashes for this area, and the second important task is the settlement of Novopodgorodnya. As for this settlement, there are also very heavy clashes. So he's trying to tell us that the Russians are keeping advancing in the Dnipropetrovsk direction, but as for him, he called this operation as a creation of a buffer zone through the Dnipropetrovsk region, through its southern and the southeastern parts. Now let's discuss the situation in the Dobropolye direction. According to the Commander-in-Chief, he gave us the report, and his report completely corresponds with the situation that you can see right now in front of your screens. According to him, the Russians are about to finish the battle for the settlement of Grishina, and we've discussed the situation many times during the previous days because the map has been adjusted significantly during the same period of time. For example, this is the situation by the end of the 12th of March of 2026. 2026, and this is approximately the moment when the Russians launched their final wave of attacks with the purpose to establish complete control over the settlement. And this is the way how the map has been adjusted since the 12th of March. And today, the territory of Grishna is completely colored either with the red color, which means that this part of the territory is under complete Russian control, or with the gray zone. So which means that maybe in coming hours or days, the Russians will confirm complete control over the territory. Furthermore, the commander-in-chief stated that the Russians are finishing the battle for the settlement of Novodonbass as well, which is located to the north of the city of Belitska and to the southeast of the Dobropolye agglomeration. And the Russians stated that the clashes for the settlement of Belitska itself are still ongoing. Now let's talk about the city of Konstantinovka, because from this point we see huge changes and huge gap between the maps, different maps, and the report of the commander-in-chief. According to him, the Russians control currently by the morning of the 17th of March of 2026, the Russians have captured 60% of the city of Konstantinovka, and according to any map of any mapper, the Russians captured just probably 10 or 15%. So as you can see, we have a gap of around 35-40% between the commander-in-chief and the mappers all over the world, which means that something strange is happening right now in the area of the settlement. We know that the Russians several days ago launched a major offensive operation in the southwestern direction with the purpose to establish complete control over this part of the city. And after this video, for example, was published, we start receiving updates about the changes on the ground. Further, the commander-in-chief reported that currently the clashes are taking place for the settlement of Ilinka, and it seems that according to the commander-in-chief, the Russians during the previous days managed to establish complete control at least over this part of the city. So the entire eastern part, and it seems that the entire southern parts of the city of Konstantinovka is already under complete control of the armed forces of the Russian Federation. But even with these changes, with this configuration, we don't see 60% under control of Russians. When talking about 60% of control of Russians over the territory, the map should look like this. So everything, let's say, along this red line and further to the right and to the bottom should be already under Russian control when talking about 60% of control over the city. But we see that nothing similar or nothing like this we can see anywhere. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation in the Slavyansk direction. Also, the Russians stated that as a result of clashes, they managed to establish complete control over the settlement by the name of Kaliniki. Based on the report of the commander-in-chief, we have adjusted the map and we added the gray zone in this area. We didn't risk to color the territory as the territory under complete Russian control, because as you can see, the settlement of Kaliniki is surrounded with dense network of the fortifications, and obviously this is not an easy job to take these strongholds under complete control, so that is why we colored the territory as a gray zone. I would like to remind you that yesterday pro-Ukrainian sources reported that Russians infiltrated their troops inside of this huge forest, and today the Russians stated that the settlement of Kaliniki was captured. So let's wait and see, because if this information about the village of Kaliniki is correct, then of course the situation for the city of Slavyansk has worsened significantly. Another important area is the city of Liman. According to maps of most of the mappers, the Russians control probably up to 15% of the city of Liman and nothing more. But according to Russians, by the morning of the 17th of March of 2026, the Russians have captured up to 50% of the city of Liman. I'm trying to tell you that this is something that has a huge gap with the current situation. Anyway, these are the statements made by the Russians, but obviously during the next days the Russians will try to confirm their words with video, with the different probably pictures and so on. So we believe that in coming days we should expect huge changes on the ground. Another important area is the northern directions. During the previous 24 hours, during the previous nights, pro-Russian sources stated that as a result of clashes, the Russians managed to establish complete control over the settlement by the name of Sopich, which is located along MO2 road in the most northern parts of the Sumy region. I would like to remind you that the Ukrainians are using this part of Sumy and Chernigov regions as launching sites to attack deep inside of the territory of the Russian Federation. And for example, during the previous night, the Ukrainians carried out one of the biggest attacks since the beginning of the conflict. The Ukrainians used more than 400 drones once again, and the attack in the direction of Moscow lasts for more than 2 days already. So according to information we have, between 4 a.m. and 4 p.m. The Russians destroyed 96 drones in the Moscow direction. Between 4 p.m. and 8 p.m. the Russians destroyed another 59 drones, and overnight the Russians destroyed 206 drones that were launched by the armored forces of Ukraine in the direction of the city of Moscow. We believe and we expect that in coming days the Ukrainians will try to attack in the direction of Moscow, also using cruise missiles or ballistic missiles or something like this, because we now understand that probably during the previous 2.5 days the Ukrainians used around 1,000 drones to attack in the direction of the city of Moscow, which means that the Russian air defense forces probably are overloaded in this direction, which means that Ukrainians may try to use their missiles to attack Moscow, and this can lead to unpredictable consequences, first of all for the negotiation process, but probably the consequences could be predicted very well, very easily if Ukrainians attack. Furthermore, the Russians during the previous night also attacked the territory of Ukraine, and the sources are saying that the Russians overnight used 179 drones, and this is the second day in a row when the Russians are using more than usually drones. For example, in the previous, since the beginning probably of autumn of 2025 till the end of February, the Russians were using around 120 drones during regular attacks from day to day. But starting from yesterday, the Russians significantly increased the number of drones during daily attacks. Now the Russians are using around 200 drones a day. And this is the second time, so which means that in coming days, during the next major attack, the Russians may use up to 700 or even 800 air vehicles and assets to attack the energy infrastructure of Ukraine. As for this attack that was carried out by the Russians during the previous night, according to information we have, the Russians destroyed a post office, logistic infrastructure facility was attacked and partially destroyed in Zaporozhye. According to local authorities, as you can see, this storage is located very close to the area of the Russian Zaporozhye offensive operation. So the main purpose of Russian attack is to reduce Ukrainian logistic capabilities, obviously. Furthermore, the Ukrainians, pro-Russian sources published a video from the southern part of Russia. Here we can see an oil depot that was attacked by the Ukrainians several days ago, and we see that there is still fire in this area, and most likely there were lots of fuel in these reservoirs, which means that the fire will last for the next several days, and most likely the Russians will not be able to stabilize the situation. As we can see, people in this area are not doing anything because they understand it's impossible. The only way how to probably stabilize the situation is to finish when the fire ends. Now let's discuss the situation in the Middle East. We see that most likely the United States of America hasn't been prepared to the situation in the Strait of Hormuz. During the previous night, we received additional videos, schemas of the situation in this area. We can see that several tankers are able to cross the Strait of Hormuz, but they're moving almost along the shore of the Iranian shore of the Strait of Hormuz, which means that this is the only secure way how to escape the Persian Gulf. The Iranians continue attacking infrastructure of the United Arab Emirates through the entire state. We had different videos and different articles that were published on this matter. This is the video from the Dubai airport area. Something big was destroyed, most likely. The aircraft fuel was destroyed as a result of another attack. But when talking about this map, we see that there is a very huge gap in the eastern parts of the United Arab Emirates, in the area of the port infrastructure of this territory, and it seems that the United Arab Emirates still have possibilities using this port infrastructure to export oil. We're talking about port of Fujairah, and today we received the report that probably for the first time since the beginning of the conflict, conflict, an oil tanker was attacked off the coast of Fujairah. So which means that, as you remember, during the previous videos we discussed that there are lots of tankers in this area, and these tankers could become a target for the Iranians. And it seems that today, for the first time since this situation started, the Iranians attacked a tanker that has nothing related to the Persian Gulf and the Strait of Hormuz. And most likely the Iranians will continue attacks in this direction with the purpose to establish complete control over the Strait of Hormuz and the Persian Gulf. As I told you, the United States of America wasn't prepared for this situation. Just several days ago, they sent in this area the 31st Marine Expeditional Units, but obviously this 31st Marine Expeditional Unit will arrive just within 10 days or something like this, and obviously during this period of time the Strait of Hormuz will be completely blocked. So that is why the President of the United States of America have lots of time to continue build up, to continue creation of his coalition. But as we discussed yesterday, most of his allies rejected to join his coalition. We're talking about France, we're talking about the United Kingdom, we're talking about South Korea, Japan, and so on. And nobody is going to join this situation, this adventure. And the President of the United States of America made a statement on this matter. He said that we have 45,000 troops in Japan, 45,000 in South Korea, and 50,000 in Germany. We defend all these countries. And then, do you have any minesweepers? They say, well, would it be possible for us not to get involved? So we understand that most likely the United States of America most likely would be forced to unblock the Strait of Hormuz alone. But it seems that nobody has plan how to do this. And the main problem is not just that there might be mines in the Strait of Hormuz. Probably the biggest problem, of course, is the topographical situation. For example, this is the map of this region. For example, if the United States of America decide to take under complete control the island of Keshem, we see that this island is located much lower than the possible positions of the Iranian forces on the Iranian side of the Strait of Hormuz. And furthermore, the positions of the Iranians will be located through the mountain area, which means that the allies in the United States of America will have many complicated things to control these territories, because they would be always under fire from the Iranian side. This is the big topographical map in this area. We see that the Iranian positions are located through the mountain area, and the positions of the coalition is located on the hills, not on the hills but through the valley, on the valley in this area, in the lowlands, without any chances to stay invisible or to have positions that the Iranians are not able to get. And of course, the island of Hark, the same story. This island is located lower than the positions of the Iranians on the Iranian side of this area. And furthermore, today the Iranians stated that if the United States of America takes this island under complete control, they will reduce the oil infrastructure of this island till ruins without any chances to restore it. So we see that the Iranians are not planning to give up. They have their own demands to finish the conflict. So we have already discussed them, but we understand that these demands are not acceptable for the United States of America. And that's it for the short video. The Military with Summary channel reminds to condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.